Today's guest on the What Fuels You podcast is Matt Ehrlichman. Matt is the CEO, chairman, and founder of Porch Group, a Seattle-based vertical software platform for the home. Porch's mission is to help home services companies grow, and through these relationships to help make the most simple from moving to maintenance and everything in between. Prior to founding Porch, Matt created his first technology startup, Thriva, in his dorm room at Stanford University, where he also received his Bachelor of Science in Entrepreneurial Engineering and Master of Science in Management Science and Engineering. In 2007, he sold Thriva to Active Network for $60 million and went on to become Active Network's Chief Strategy Officer, where during his 5-year tenure, Active grew from $60 million to more than $420 million in revenue and IPO'd in 2011. Matt currently lives in Seattle with his wife and 3 children. Welcome, Matt. Great to see you.
Nice to be here.
Okay, I know you're a Hawks fan. So my rapid fire first question is, who's your favorite Seahawk?
Oh man, that's a good question. I mean, it bounces around a little bit year to year. I'm gonna go with Chris Carson. I just like the way that he runs.
Okay.
Hard-nosed guy.
I love it. What have you read, listened to, or watched in the past year that you would recommend?
The Outliers book I would recommend. I thought it was great. It has me really make some different choices even with our business. So I'd recommend that. I watched The Boys was a recent show that I watched. I actually thought it was pretty fun. I'm into superheroes.
Oh, nice. Okay, I want to hear about your business in high school, but I'm guessing maybe you were an athlete. What was your favorite sport when you were a kid?
I did. I grew up playing lots of stuff. The basketball, soccer, tennis were my main 3.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, okay, we've got fall soccer, winter basketball, spring tennis.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Actually, back then it was flipped around. Soccer was spring, tennis was fall. But yeah, I was able to play all those.
Yeah, awesome. So in general, do you make decisions in life based on data or gut?
I'd have to say both. I think inform yourself with data, but then, there's certain choices, important choices, you have to trust your gut and just go with it. Yeah. So yeah, very, very much both. I am very data oriented. My team would say, I'm very data oriented, but at the end of the day, there's key choices in life. You just have to trust yourself.
Well, I'm guessing, and our listeners will get into the story of Porch, I'm guessing you're sitting on a shit ton of data right now. I can't even imagine. So are you an introvert or an extrovert?
Introvert.
Nice. Are you a trained extrovert? I've had a lot of CEOs on who are like, well, I have to be an extrovert for my job, but technically I'm an introvert.
That's exactly what it is. Yep. Yeah. I mean, I enjoy spending time with people, and all day long I'm spending time with people. But at the end of the day, when it's done, I'm a pretty simple guy. Work super hard, trying to build a great company, do that with a group of people I care about deeply, and then spend time with my family, and I'm all in trying to be a great husband, be a great dad. And so it's a pretty simple life in that regard.
Yeah. I don't even know how you're balancing it all. We will get to it. But are you water or mountains?
It is both, but I'd side to water if I had to.
Yeah. Lake or ocean?
We love going out to Seabrook and doing the ocean, but it's lake. We go down here to Lake Washington during the summer and just love getting out there.
It's the best. I cannot wait to jump in the lake. We're getting close. Is there a person this is a tough one because everyone feels obligated to say one of their parents, but minus your parents, is there a person that you most admire?
There's a number of people. I'm going to point to Warren Buffett. So I really have appreciated how he's structured his company and how he's delegated, how he's built this decentralized organization. Just the spirit that this guy lives. What a great goal to be that age and still just on fire. And
well, you're young. You got a lot of years ahead of you. You can do it.
I do. But what a great goal to be just so into your life. I think it's pretty neat.
I love that. Okay, so you grew up like me. We're a few of the rarities that grew up in Seattle.
Yeah, born and raised. Met my wife at Shorecrest High School in Shoreline, Washington.
I didn't know that.
Started
school.
dating and left for college, but yeah, this is home.
You guys started dating in high school?
We did. Yep. Never looked back.
Oh my goodness.
1997. There you
So
go.
you've been together a very long time.
Yeah. No, for more now than half of our lives. So it's been great.
How would you describe that childhood?
My parents did a great job. Very stable, childhood. My dad worked hard. My mom could just be there, and with us and supporting us. They pushed myself and my siblings. Certainly, the expectations were high, and that I thought was helpful. I mean, it helps you figure out how to stretch yourself, how to perform. I could not have asked for anything more. I was very fortunate.
I'm curious when you say pushed hard, and I'm asking this as a mom who's like, I don't know what I'll look back on and say I coulda, shoulda, would have done this differently. But like when you say pushed us hard for learning, curiosity, achievement, like when you talk about that, like what are you thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, I would say all of those things. It's just at the end of the day, and I have this perspective as well, but you want everybody to fulfill their potential, and you want to teach your kids and help them understand that is actually important to understand, you have potential, a lot of potential, and you have to grind, and that so much of life, in my view, is just outworking other people and just grinding day after day after day and being tireless in a certain pursuit. And I think that gets built into your DNA at a young age, where and my parents, certainly, instilled that in me, which is you just keep going, and you keep grinding and you push yourself to be as good as you can be. Yeah. And so there was high expectations just in terms of kind of how that would lead into certain performance. But again, they did a great job.
I love that. My son's going into the state finals this weekend for lacrosse, and he's a junior, like a big player. And I sent him a text yesterday they won last night, but that said, that saying that says luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. And I love that quote because it's like, you can't just go in and wing it. You have to prepare. And Absolutely. He does. Like,
that is life. I mean, that is life. You look at these, these moments along the journey of building businesses, and you could say, that was, then certainly there is luck involved, but it's really, I think there's often these moments where luck can be involved. And are you set up and ready to be able to take advantage of those moments when they're presented? But I think that's life. I agree.
Yeah, I love that. And so I guess, are you friends still with a lot of your high school friends? And if so, would they be surprised to see that you're CEO of a publicly traded company? You've been an entrepreneur your whole life.
I wouldn't say
how would they describe you?
Lots of high school friends, but some of my best friends today, are some of who my best friends were back in high school, and our families are connected. I would say no, not at all surprised. Before high school even had started my first company. I had led and gone very deep into a number of things in high school, but our school newspaper, took that over, ran that, grew it significantly, and that had great progress and won competitions. It was always, I don't know why, even from being very young, I would do, stands on the street and sell sand dollars.
What were you motivated by? Because I've had a lot of people on here who are like, I came from nothing and I didn't want that for myself. I wanted to get out of my situation. And other people who are like, the thrill of the competition. Like, do you know, like in reflecting, what you were, I guess, super cheesy, but what fueled you?
Yeah, I think that I think it's the $1 million question, right? I think that it certainly changes over time. What motivates me. I know that set of traits was just pretty innate in me from a young age. Like that's just how I was wired, to not follow the rules or the normal, but to be able to to break through and kind of make things in the way that I would want to see it. Mm-hmm. And that spark came very natural to me, and the ability to go and be creative and again change things and start things. But the motivation behind that certainly has changed over time. I'm sure in those young years, you're just trying to still figure out who you are as a person, and a human, and you want to, look good and have people be proud of you and all those types of things that is very, very natural for humans to do. And then you get to another stage of life and, you're trying to just start your career and you want to find success, and, there's a period of time where getting a good, financial outcome and being comfortable and taking care of your family, that's an important, thing. But then it gets to a certain point in your life, and this is, more where I am, where you want to do things that, are create more of a legacy, that you can look back on.
I actually have a question around legacy there, because it's true. Like, you're creating so much impact and meaning.
Yeah. And you want to make the world, world better. You want to put your, albeit small, but your stamp, on the world. You want to set an example for your kids, in terms of, somebody that they will look up to. But at the end of the day, you want to do something when you're old. My view, actually, I'll just speak for myself. When I'm old, you look back and you're proud of what you did. And so I don't know if there's one thing, but it kind of morphs over time in terms of what the motivations are. It's,
I'm sure, very apparent that your parents are probably extremely proud of you and have done a great job. And you said that they pushed you, but was school something like, were you academically kind of, was school easy for you? Or was it like, I have to work my ass off and outwork these other people?
I think it was both. It did come easy for me. And I worked my ass off to do really well in school. Yeah. And so, yes, I did well in school. I had a 4.0 through school, and,
That's amazing.
was able to go to the college of, I was hoping to go to. And
Stanford was the top choice?
It was, yeah. I had early admission to Stanford.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. How did you know, and how did you choose? And I'm asking this as a mother of a junior in high school.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was something actually I probably was wearing Stanford gear in elementary school. Like, for whatever reason, that was kind of something I wanted to go to, for quite a while, actually. And so I was fortunate to be able to have that, work out. But I mean, great school, West Coast, I'm a West Coast guy.
And I can understand why somebody would make it very clear from a young age why they wanted to go there. That's awesome. Yeah. Do you have professors from Stanford that have really inspired you or taken you under their wing?
Yeah, certainly, class to class. No, I wouldn't say take under the wing. Like, it's not like I have these ongoing relationships after I had moved back up, but certainly at the time, especially in the last couple of years where you're really deep into the courses that you care deeply, about. I mean, there was, tremendous inspiration, in terms of just kind of, again, forming the life that you want to form and the path that I would want to be on. Yeah. So I'm very appreciative.
And what age did you realize, I didn't even know that entrepreneurial engineering was a thing? I think it's the first time I've seen that.
Well, it's not. I designed it. So.
Because I'm wait, I've never seen engineering. I've not seen entrepreneurial engineering. Yeah. Wait, what does that mean? I designed it.
So, I mean, this is kind of goes back to my personality a little bit, which you have, relatively small set of students, you have the ability to design your degree. And so that I made it up, it's a combination of business classes, product design classes, and computer science classes, my gosh. Formed into entrepreneurial engineering, which suited me, suits me.
It's brilliant. Everyone needs to take entrepreneurial engineering.
I thought so.
And did you get a master's at the same time?
I did. Yeah. I packed a master's into that fourth year at college, which is management science and engineering. Basically, it's business, classic business.
Wow. And so is that something that if you had to give advice to someone else, would you say that that's necessary? What of those things have been most impactful? Was it specifically Stanford or specifically what you studied or the master's part?
Yeah, I think the network of people that you build and interact with is dramatically more impactful than the specific courses, in my opinion. And so, the people that I met, I founded a first company with some of those, people, right? And so I think surrounding yourself, going to a college, once you're surrounding yourself with people that are both going to challenge you, create new perspective, but also be like-minded, people you want to be able to spend time with and do interesting things, with. The courses are great, but in my experience anyway, the reality is you learn 98% in the world as you actually, are doing real things in the world. But the network is incredibly valuable.
Oh, I'm sure. And so Porch is your third company that you've started, if I'm doing my research right. The first one was in high school. I want to hear about that business. And then you started your second company while you're at Stanford. And then Porch, and I want to hear about the whole entrepreneurial journey. I'm guessing you've never really even worked for anyone else.
Little known fact, but I've never interviewed for a job ever in my life. So I've obviously interviewed lots of people, but maybe when I'm done with Porch at some point, which is going to be a long way off, maybe I'll just go do that for fun, just to experience it. But no,
well, you seem like you would still be able to have empathy for someone who's going through a job interview, because it is, and I always tell my team, like when you're interviewing people, like realize the nerves and realize like the chaos for them of like the choices, and am I coming off right? Am I selling myself right? So I know you're a great interviewer. I've actually heard that about you. So you figured it out on the other end.
Yeah, you get better and better as you go.
So the high school business, tell me all about that one.
Yeah, so it's been a fun journey along the way. My first company I started when I was 14 years old. It was a sports camp. I was into sports. I had a brother who was almost a decade younger than I was. And the very first summer was for him and his friends, and very small, but it went well. The parents liked it, kids liked it. And so then I put together a real business called All-Star Camps. And over the next 5 years, scaled it up. It was actually one of my favorite jobs ever, because it ended up having, sites across Western Washington, lots of campers across these different sites. And it was just a great time to get out there.
And what was it exactly? It was like, hey, the schedule, or like,
teaching kids how to play sports and how to apply lessons you learn from sports to become a better person, at the end of the day. And so it was an actual sports camp. And then when I got to Stanford, the next business was a company called Thriva, which was a technology company to create software for event organizations like summer camps or like corporate events or like sports leagues. And that technology company had a really good run. We built that up, bootstrapped it, had a very successful, exit when we sold the company 4 or 5 years after graduating from college, and then moved on to the next thing.
And so you stayed on there, and then I read in your intro, like grew that revenue. Is that kind of your special sauce? It sounds like you've got a little bit of everything. You're like, I'm product, I'm engineering, I'm like strategy, I'm biz dev. Like, what is if you were to go get hired by someone right now, what role would it be?
Well, I mean, if I were to get hired by somebody, it would be CEO.
No, I don't mean that. I mean in a functional role that's not CEO, because you're CEO, you're wearing so many hats.
I don't know if I'm actually that great at like one thing. I think that is what being an entrepreneur is, my experience. Like, you kind of have to be able to plug into everything, in with the financial team and the models and figuring the business out. Clearly your strategy, is right, down the middle of what I'm certainly focused on. Big partnerships, and M&A opportunities. That's something I've always, helped with and good at. But then in the teams with the product, and helping to actually go and just build the businesses operationally. But I suppose at the end of the day, what it comes down to is the companies get bigger and bigger is people. It's not like at this point, I'm doing the work. I'm clearly not doing the work, anymore. At small scale, when you just start a company, you're in all of those things, at this point, it's really making sure we have the right people in place, that the right framework and structures in place for those people to be able to excel, and then simply supporting them, right? Being that sounding board as they need it to help them, be great, at their jobs, and making sure the company is clear on where we're heading, and what we're trying to go and accomplish.
Yeah.
That, if you do that right, that accomplishes 80-90% of what you need to accomplish.
100%. I was like, you're talking about like servant leadership. 100%. So when you sold Thriva, were you out looking to sell it, or someone approached you? And I guess if so, what was that transition like? Because that's a scary thing, right? Like, am I going to have to now report into somebody, and what's that going to be like?
Yeah, we had somebody approach us to buy the company. it's one of those things I look back on, was it the right thing to do or not? I mean, clearly it worked out well. It was also at a place where, you have the opportunity to go and just continue to build a really successful company. I probably was not equipped, at that point, just to go build a really big company. Like I was able to do the startup and scale it up, successful, very profitable company. Going through that next 4 years with the acquirer, where I was one of the few leaders of that company, and just building that company up to thousands of people, you learn, how to build companies at a bigger scale.
Yes.
We took that company public, going through that process, you learn a lot. And so then when I started Porch, I just felt like I had best of both worlds. Had experiences at early stage, had experiences later stage, and was set up to be able to go build a much bigger company.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so let's talk Porch. What was the original idea, and how did you come up with it? And then who did you first tell about your idea?
Yeah. So before I even had an idea, I had the almost the spirit, in mind, which is, hey, I wanted to go build something great. The past companies were good companies. They worked out well, but they weren't great companies. They weren't these, enduring companies. And I wanted to go test and see how good I was at the end of the day, see if I was able to go and do it, build something that would be that legacy company, for me. And so then I kind of captured that spirit, and then started, thinking about what was the space, what was the problem to go and solve, and looked at a number of, big markets. Or this is before Uber. I was thinking about transportation, that was an interesting category. Looked at the home was one of those categories that I was looking at. And just because it's people's largest asset in their lives, and it's, very painful. My wife and I started the process of building a home. And as we were going through that process, that really is what clicked it in for me to kind of become personally attached to that problem, where it was just very painful, much more.
What aspect of it was the original idea? What was the problem you were trying to solve?
Yeah. So at the highest level, we wanted to make the home easy. So we wanted to take, again, people's largest asset in their lives, and just make this journey that they have with their home simple. When people move into their home, it's exceptionally painful. When you're taking care of your home on an ongoing basis with all the services you need to get done for your home, people don't know who to hire and the right professional, and people are busy and it's at the right price. So just thinking about this journey, when we launched the company, this is one of those key mistakes certainly that I had made. This is something, if you ask what would I do differently, this would be one of those big ones. But I started, helping people to find the right professional. That's what
that's when I first met you. That's what you were doing. And then I think around the same time, like maybe pro.com was also, it seems similar, or like I knew both of you guys. I was like,
a variety of others. Yeah. I mean, Angie's List would have been a known brand back there. Home Advisor. There's companies that were larger, and we had obviously our unique spin, and we had amassed unique data to be able to create a different experience for the consumer. But at the end of the day, that's what we started with. Is okay, let's help people find the right professional for their home based on the specific value of their home, who works in that neighborhood a lot, who their neighbors love. That's what we launched. That was September 17th, 2013. We launched the company, and Porch was born.
I still think just that alone is super useful. I mean, it's not crazy as that to have that idea. It's something we all want.
For sure. There's a real use case out there, and we've had good success over the first couple of years. We had raised a bunch of money, I built the team up, had real revenues. The business was growing nicely, got to 8 figures in revenues with it growing well. But it was the challenge, why I say it was a mistake. It's not because that, idea was fundamentally flawed on how we could help people. It's really being able to get a business model and structure in place around that problem to solve that was challenging.
What was the original business model?
So we would have professionals pay us a subscription fee, basically an advertising, fee, to be able to be in front of these consumers that we bring into the system. And we were, this is one of those moments of luck or executing well when that opportunity presented itself. We had some great breaks where we had big partnerships like Lowe's, Home Improvement.
I remember when the Lowe's thing happened.
Stores. Yeah. And so you got these things that you need in a business like that to get the flywheel working, to start just being relevant, in the world. And so we were able to, pull off certain things that could get the business stood up and start building momentum for the company. And so we grew nicely over the first couple of years. But 2 years in, it became clear that it was going to be hard, and I would actually say impossible, to go and build a true long-term company, and accomplish that core initial spirit that I was trying to accomplish. Because two reasons. One, consumers, when you would help them with a professional, as it turns out, people don't hire that many professionals each year for their home. And so even when you would delight that consumer, you wouldn't see this step function change in lifetime value of that consumer or them coming back. You have to go out and reacquire consumers every single time. And that just made that harder. One. Two, when we would go and get paid from professionals, it was very difficult to give those professionals, the right amount of value. Either we would give them too little and you'd see attrition, or you would have them be featured and they'd get a lot of work, but you wouldn't be generating enough revenue to be able to go and acquire enough consumers. And so at the end of the day, that fundamentally, the just core unit economics of the business, weren't at a place that we couldn't improve them enough to allow the business to grow, like we wanted to. So that led to a pivot.
And what was the pivot?
So one of the harder moments for me, actually in my business career, Porch was a private company, but very public facing. There's lots of PR, it was a known hot startup in the area. And back in October of 2015, when that situation became clear, we said, okay, look, we have a good amount of cash. We can just keep going, and try to make this thing work. But we're going to continue to burn cash. Better for us to pull back, and we fired 93 people, to be able to just lower the burn rate and give ourselves more time to be able to go and figure out what we'd have to do differently, what do we have to change for the business to be able to.
And how much had you raised at that point, and what stage of the raise was that at the A round?
That would have been after the B round. So I led our seed round. Lowe's led our Series A, and then we had outside private equity lead our Series B. So you
self-funded the business from the beginning?
I led the first round of financing. And I participated in each round of financing along the way. But we had raised probably around $100 million total, as of that point in time across those three.
That's a shit ton of money to raise, and to be in that position to be like, those are the tough decisions. And some people just don't have the discipline to do that, and to look at it and pull themselves out of it and just say, okay, let's just look at the use case here of the actual business.
Totally. And it was super painful. The reality is, because it's not only painful because these people poured their heart and soul in the company and you care about these people. It's also just embarrassing, right? It's 100% on me, right? I'm the CEO of the company. We made the wrong choices. We thought we had it, but we just didn't, really have it to be able to scale as fast as we were scaling. And it just, it sucked to have to go and make that call. But you're right. We could have waited, and we would have been on a path, where we would have kept going and try to sell the company, 2 or 3 or 4 years later. That was almost certainly the path. Right. And what I was hoping to do is not to do that, but to go and build something big, that's enduring. Yeah. And so we made that call. We stepped back and we got to work over that next, year and even into 2 years to start testing, start finding kind of the path, the changes to our model that would be able to scale.
And so you put together a board in the early days. Is it still the same board today? And if someone's listening that is a first-time entrepreneur and is wondering, like, how do you even vet a board or choose a board? Can you talk a little bit about why that's important?
Sure. I mean, I think the most important thing in the early days, as you're a private company, is selecting the right investors, and those tend to be the people that are
Right.
also on your board. But those are very unique moments and special moments in time when you're raising money. And I think often, entrepreneurs are just, want that money in, which is understandable. Like, you need to be able to get the fuel for the company, but it's so important to get the right money, into the company, the people that are going to actually help you build the company, that are going to give you the right sets of experiences. We haven't been perfect, at that, but overall, we brought enough of the right people into the company that have been able to really, really help us. The board has changed for us just over time. So as we, groups like Lowe's and our private equity firm, they would no longer be involved as you transition into a public company. Yeah. So we built out, as a public company now, an independent board, that sits with me on the board. But so then that would be not atypical to transition in the public markets, but we had a fairly consistent board through the private company years.
Mm-hmm. And so, given that you've been through kind of this intensity from like starting the business to 2015, at what point along the way did you determine what you were going to stand for as far as the company values and as far as how you looked at building a culture? And did you have to kind of rethink that when you were going back to build again? Or have you stayed kind of true to the same core values?
I'd say this is one of the things that we did best at. And it was simply because of just, having built previous companies, being conscious of the fact of how important values are. So even in the early days, even, in the basement of my rental house, as we were just getting going, we were already starting to talk about values, who we want to be. Those values really hardened, as we launched the company, launched the site to get the right words, down on paper. But I think having solidified those values, talking about those values, caring about it, getting it instilled into the DNA of the company, mm-hmm. That as we then went through a tough period of time, we had a significant core of the company, stay together. We didn't, certainly not everybody, we had people leave that we would have loved to have stayed, that couldn't see that light at the end of the tunnel. But we had enough people, really stick together and believe in what we were doing because of the values, I believe.
And what are some of the values, and what was the process like to cement them, as you said?
First thing you see up on the wall when you walk into the office is no jerks, no egos. So I believe you can go do great things and you can be fundamentally kind. You can be a good human.
You can be both.
Yeah.
Yeah. People like the talking, like you can do well and do good and be good. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. And be kind. Like, you're never going to go into a porch, meeting and have people swearing or yelling at each other. Like, we're in it together. Like, and we're going to disagree and debate and like work through stuff clearly. But look, you're all on the same side, and you're going to go work through this together, and you're going to try to be kind to each other. That's one. Be ambitious, is one. From the very beginning. This even goes back to that choice of doing a pivot. It would have been normal, I would say, for most companies to just keep going and keep trying to build the momentum you can, and then go sell the company. The whole idea of going through a pivot is really around just, hey, like, we are trying to go build something really big. We're trying to fundamentally change how people live in and take care of their homes. There's that whole experience people have, and be that partner for their home. We want them to think about our brand. If you play this forward 5 years from now, I think that we will be at a place where people will think about our brand as something.
I do think you've done a great job with the brand, not just even the values part, but the physical image of the brand. Like, it feels intimate and it feels connected.
Thanks. I mean, it's a whole other story as how we chose that name, but the Porch is this, this authentic in-between space between your private home and the outside world. And that image of what people think about in terms of the porch, I agree, is that kind of special space in a home. So be ambitious is one, that again, I think was important. Solve each problem. This goes to one of the very first things that we talked about actually today, which is just that, that grit and that perseverance, that is deeply instilled in me and it's been deeply instilled in the company. And I just believe this in both life and business, which is you are always going to have this next problem. Things are never smooth. And what you do is you don't make it a bigger deal than it is. You just get to work and you just grind and you solve this problem. And then guess what's going to happen? As long as you're being ambitious enough, there's going to be another big problem. And you just go through and you work and then you work and then you work. And so that's something that I think in those moments where it's hard, it's just the next problem to solve. That's all it is, and you just get to work and you just go solve it. So that's one that we point to. Last two are care deeply and together we win. The idea that we are all in it together and we're gonna win. We are competitive, like we are looking to win, but we're gonna do that together.
Yeah, and have you been able to see over time kind of what makes someone successful at Porch? And if someone's listening and is looking for a job, like if it's like, hey, don't even bother applying if you XYZ, or please apply if this describes you.
Well, I would actually say we've seen consistently over time the people that fit those values that I just described work. And so, and the people that don't, just don't, we've made.
But how do you vet? It's super hard to vet for those things. Like, how do you vet?
Yeah. So we've gotten better and better at that over the years. It's still hard in an interview process to know with certainty, but really try to unearth proof points, around each of those values. So in a loop, we'll have a person who is specifically interviewing for one value around that person and trying to find stories and examples of where people either demonstrated that.
I love that. And then is it a kind of top down, like the hiring manager gets the final say, or does everybody have to be on the same page? Or how does that work?
So we have a scoring system, for everybody that's involved in the loop. The hiring manager does get the final call unless there are multiple people that are below kind of the threshold, where they'd be marking it essentially as a no hire. And if so, then no, you just pass. Make sure that we're raising the bar.
Right. Interesting. And so how have you gone about attracting talent? Are you well known enough now that you're getting a lot of passive interest? And given where we are right now with this crazy, all of like Microsoft and Apple just announced, I think it was today, like everybody's like doubling down on salaries and equity, and just it's so hard to compete. What are you doing to set yourselves apart?
One thing that's changed a lot over the past 4 or 5 years for us is location. So at this point, I'll bet 10 or 15% of our team is in Seattle. And we've really become location agnostic. Mm-hmm. And so we have a number of offices in a variety of cities, in Texas, on the East Coast, and small in California. But we're hiring people everywhere, at this point. And so it opens up the pool of candidates, for us. And we can also have people working for us that are just in lower cost locations, just in general.
But that's changed in the last 2 years. Like most everyone can say that. So then how do you attract people? Or like, what's the story that kind of closes the gap on people being confused if they want to go to another, company, or if they want to just go to some huge company?
Yeah. So it obviously depends on what people are looking for, but Porch has this unique mix of this culture, that people really like working, like the people at Porch, you will form great connections with because they are, special people with having huge growth and huge upside, but not a brand new startup, right? That there's just a lot of risk, there. And so for us, I actually feel very fortunate. We've been able to just continue to attract exceptionally strong, people, and that begets hiring more great people, at the end of the day, and so it does build on itself. Yeah.
And obviously, given you're a publicly traded company and there's more eyes on you, how have you approached not just setting an intention, but putting to action a diversity and inclusion and kind of equitable pay culture?
Yeah. it's something we had started on before being public, just making sure that we had visibility. At the end of the day, it starts with data, right? Having visibility into what you are doing. Some of our key leaders, for a long time have been, a diverse, group of people. And so, again, I think it then begets continuing to hire diversity, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, having some of those people that I've worked with in the past, even, at Porch certainly helps us. I think this is something that you're in the journey though. Like most things in business, like you're never perfect and you have to continue to work and you continue, it's continuous improvement, right? Just continuing to get better and evaluate how you can improve. But we're at a good spot, overall, in terms of kind of how we're hiring and how we're doing there. I'll say being a public CEO is different than being a private, CEO. I'll say I personally, which I think surprises people when I tell them this, but I actually have liked it better. So I have had more fun over these last couple of years, 18 months really, of being a public CEO than I have previously. The stresses are very different. Before as a private company CEO, I was spending a lot more time just, thinking about how we were going to survive, right? What's the next, funding milestone? And now, we have capital, the company's in a solid place, but there's different level of stresses like the market, like our company is doing really well.
Yeah.
But there's these outside forces, this literally daily or to the second ticker that just has no connection short term with how businesses are actually performing. And so that can be, a real distraction for the team.
Yeah, right.
Fundamentally what I believe is put all your energy and focus into building something and creating real value. And then that will show up, over time. So independent of that, being a public CEO is great. Even still put that aside, the noise in the market, like that is just noise. And our ability to go build a great public long-term company and hire great people, be able to incent them appropriately, all of that is easier, I would say, as a public company.
I can see that. So I don't think I realized before researching Porch more for this podcast, because I feel so connected to Porch. And I was like, holy shit, they have done so much that I wasn't even aware of, that you've, you started to talk about the original business model and then gone into like insurance and real estate transactions and mortgage refinancing and all these other aspects through lots of acquisitions. It looks like, just from quick research, that insurance has been a really good bet. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, insurance is the most valuable service in the home,
right.
and is one that recurs. So, what was it, 6 years ago, when I was talking about making the pivot, we again realized that consumers, when they're hiring a professional, just don't hire that many more professionals. Well, we started thinking about, okay, what are the most valuable services in the home, right? The highest LTV services in the home. So you start to think about insurance or home warranty or TV and internet service or security and home automation or moving. These are very valuable services that consumers will purchase. So then we started thinking about, okay, when are those services purchased? And almost exclusively, these services are purchased in this pre-move phase. So you find a new home to purchase. And before you're moved in, you get insurance set up for that new home. You're going to get the TV and internet set up. You're going to hire movers. Like you do all of these things in this moment where you're getting this new home prep, to be able to move into it. That was one of those light bulb kind of moments. Like, okay, great. That, if we can meet the consumer really early on in that home buying process, there's an opportunity for us to be well entrenched with the consumer at the beginning of this journey and help them with these really valuable things that they need and to make this move easy for them. That was one aha. A second was, okay, really hard to go out and use direct to consumer channels, Google, et cetera, to go find those consumers, and very expensive if we tried to go and do that. So how do we go and find those consumers? Well, what a key choice that we made that really has helped, explode our business is, let's go provide, instead of doing direct to consumer marketing, let's go sell software to companies that are going to be working with that consumer at that moment in time when they've just found a new home. And so we started selling software to home inspection companies, we've expanded that to selling software to title companies, to mortgage companies, to moving companies. And what's happened, we now have more than 25,000 companies that we sell our software to, with just very strong leadership positions in these different key vertical markets. 28% of all of the home inspections that happen in the country are managed through our inspection software. Or more than 30% of all the US home buyers go through our title software. 1 million loan applications through our mortgage software each year.
So these are almost like little mini companies, like Porch Group is like a holding company for almost like all these little mini companies.
Yep, that provides software to these businesses. That's right. And then these businesses pay us for the software. But then what we do also is we get introduced and access to these home buyers, right? So now we help these consumers, to your point, get insurance set up for their home, right? And get the TV and internet coordinated. And so insurance has grown very, very rapidly for us as some of these other services.
I was looking at your quarter one
model
reports.
Has worked well.
I was looking at the Q1 reports and I was like, oh my gosh, A, good job. And I'm super psyched for you. But B, yeah, it did show that like that insurance segment was performing really, really well. And so because when I'm thinking about it as like, oh, hey, you're my friend, I want to give you business. Like we've been in our home 10 years. We kind of already have our people established. So it made me think like, who is the profile? Is it a first time homeowner? Because your pivot has made it so that it's everybody.
Yeah, it's anyone who is in the moment of buying a home. So the next time that you go and are going to move and are going to buy a new home, the reality is you have all your existing people for your current home. But once you need to go to your new home, you have to get a totally new insurance policy. You're going to have to go and see if you need a home warranty for that new home. Clearly, you're going to have to get your TV and internet set up at that home, get a mover to help schedule you from this home to the next. And so during that process where there's so much change for that consumer, well, we can just simply say, hey, look, this is a free service that's provided by your home inspection company or by your mortgage company. That's simply going to make this whole process easy for you. So imagine that you're a CEO and you have a corporate relocation and everything's just handled for you. We're going to provide you that whole experience for free. So we'll bring you every quote from all the different insurance companies so you can compare how much things cost and get the best one. We'll bring you quotes from all the different moving options so you can figure out, do you want full service, just handle everything, or you just want two people to show up and help you carry the heavy stuff to the couch. We'll show you all the TV and internet options and price points and the current discounts and promotions. You can just pick which one you want to have set up. So we lay this all out for the consumer and make that whole process super easy for them. And that's a very high satisfaction experience for these people during a very stressful time. Yeah.
Oh, wow. I just love this pivot. I'm like, you kind of have your hands in everything, but in a way that you're becoming just such a necessity. Like once they get a little piece of this, those companies are never going to not use your software because
that's right. Yeah, you lock yourselves into these companies. Who continue to use your software, and you become this. Well, again, what our goal is to become this real partner for that consumer, where we can make their home and this experience they have easier.
Are there any bets that you've made that have been like retro, this was a mistake? Or can you say that?
More recently, over these past, 4 years, as we kind of really, understood the strategy, not that many key poor choices. I think we've gotten a lot better at capital allocation and capital deployment. We're much more data focused on what the returns are going to be on that capital. You have little hiring mistakes here and there, certainly, but the core strategic choices and where we've kind of made bets have worked well for us.
Yeah, well, clearly, I'm excited about it. So how are you spending when you do have downtime? How are you, just completely unplugging and giving yourself Matt time, not family time, not work time, but regroup time?
Well, I'll just say when I spend more of my time now here, which is in my office at my house than in the physical office. We're doing hybrid, certainly, but I spend more of my time here. And the best thing is I walk up the stairs and, I've got an 11, 8, and 5-year-old. My 5-year-old will just dive bomb me, grab me, and take me to wrestle, my young girl. And so, that is the best stuff in the world, are these moments with them. But separate from kids, the things I love to do is still actually play sports. And so I love to compete. Playing on a tennis team, playing on a basketball league, that is the stuff that is the release for me, to be able to go and just push your body to the max and just enjoy those moments.
Okay. So my final question is, what fuels you?
Two things I would say. One is just this fuzzy picture in my head of doing something that I'll look back on when I'm old and proud of. I have a picture in my head of, or this just feeling, I suppose, of wanting to do something where I feel, deeply proud of, accomplishing something great, and so that legacy, is something that fuels me. The second thing is, my family and kids, wanting them to be, deeply proud of their dad, set an example, for them in the best way that I can. And, that goes to not only what you do, but how you do it. And it really is those two things fuels me.